Alrighty, I think I'm recording here. Hey, everybody, Mr. Carlson. We are going to be talking about grammar. Your task is going to be to read this document that you now have access to and then apply the understanding of grammar to your current Animal Farm essay. So, after gaining some insight into the four different kinds of sentences, you're going to go through 10 consecutive sentences, 10 sentences that are back to back in your paper, and you're going to highlight them with your cursor, and then you're going to click Control Alt M on your keyboard to put a comment on them so you could say whether the sentence is a simple sentence, a compound sentence, a complex sentence, or a compound complex sentence. So you're basically going to reread your writing and say whether the sentence that you've highlighted is one of the four sentence types in the English language. You might be thinking, well, what is a sentence in the English language? And a sentence is just something that expresses a complete thought and contains a subject and predicate. A really good test for this is to say something out loud, and if it sounds complete, it's a sentence probably, but if it sounds like it's missing something, it's probably a dependent clause. So a subject, as just a refresher, is the noun that's acting in the sentence, and the predicate is just a fancy word for the actions in the sentence, including the verb. So if I said Mr. Carlson ate dinner, the subject is Mr. Carlson, the predicate is ate dinner. The verb is ate, but then dinner is the object of the sentence. There are four different kinds of functions of a sentence. You could declare something, you could interrogate something, you could explain something, or you could state a command, but those are kind of straightforward. We're not going to spend a lot of time on those. The main thing is understanding the four different kinds of sentences in the English language. There are only four, despite this big complex language that we speak. And the four kinds of sentences are different combinations of clauses. A clause contains a subject and predicate. An independent clause contains a subject and predicate and could stand on its own. In contrast, a dependent clause can't stand on its own as a complete thought and depends on a separate independent clause for more information. These can be a little tricky because a dependent clause could be missing a subject or predicate or both, but it could also include a subject and a predicate but still be missing some context to be a complete sentence. Let's take a look at some examples. If I were to say Batman and Robin protected the city, the subject is Batman and Robin, the predicate is protected the city, the verb is protect. And so there's one subject and one predicate here, which means it's one independent clause. So this is a simple sentence. But if I were to say Batman and Robin protected the city, one subject, one verb, and they were tired after, the they is another subject, were is the next verb, and then this is the predicate. So there's two subjects, two predicates here, which makes that sentence a compound sentence with two or more independent clauses. Next, if we take that same starting independent clause, Batman and Robin protected the city because Joker poisoned the water supply. This is a dependent clause. If I were to say because Joker poisoned the water supply, and I asked if that sounds right or if it sounds complete, you would say no. It sounds like it's missing something. So this is an example of a complex sentence, which is one independent clause and one dependent clause. Lastly, if I were to say Batman and Robin protected the city because Joker poisoned the water supply and they were tired after, that's an example of a compound complex sentence with two or more independent clauses and one or more dependent clauses. So what I'm showing you right here is a composition I wrote for another class. It was a review of a graphic novel called Rare Flavors. And so I went through, I did the first 6 sentences of my composition, and I just tried to figure out whether it was simple, compound, complex, or compound complex. Most of the sentences that you have written are probably going to be one of these three, and most likely either a simple sentence or a complex sentence. This sentence, for example, is a simple sentence, despite it just having one subject, Ruben, and then one predicate, the verb being enlists, and then he enlists this other character, and then all this other stuff is a phrase, which is different than a clause, but we'll get to that later. and then the object of the sentence that's being acted upon by the verb in lists. This right here is a simple sentence. Mo's complicated past laced with regrets is juxtaposed. Is acting as the verb here. Ram V and Felipe Andrade's story is bold, filling, and refreshing. So you could see here, this is a simple sentence. This is also a simple sentence. And this is one that I changed when I was going through my draft to try to figure out what kind of sentences that I wrote. And that's kind of the intention here. We want you to start at the beginning of your draft and go through the first 10 sentences of it and try to figure out, are the sentences that you've written simple, compound, complex, or compound, complex? There are some rules for how you can combine the clauses, which you do need to read, but I'm not going to talk about in this video. And it's not going to be perfect on this first go, but we want to give you guys some practice. So that is your task for Thursday. Thanks for watching.